In our last video, we talked about conditional statements and three related conditional statements. So this time we're going to talk about those three related conditional statements: the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. Now remember, a conditional statement is an if-then statement. Remember, we wrote it in symbols as if P, then Q, where P was the hypothesis and Q was the conclusion. So, for example, if you have the statement, it is your birthday, so you have cake, you can write it as a conditional statement by saying, if it is your birthday, then you have cake, where it is your birthday is the hypothesis, P, and you have cake is the conclusion, Q, and I don't have room to write Q under there. So to write the converse, you want to exchange or switch the hypothesis and the conclusion of the conditional. So for example, the converse to our conditional statement would be, if you have cake, then it is your birthday. Notice how we switched the converse, the hypothesis and the conclusion. We just switched them up. So now, you have cake is the hypothesis of the converse, and it is your birthday is the conclusion of the converse. Now, so we would write that as if Q, then P. That's how we would write it in symbols. The inverse means to negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion of the conditional. Now remember, in the conditional it is, if it is your birthday, then you have cake. So the inverse would be, if it is not your birthday, then you do not have cake. In symbols, remember the negation symbol looks like part of the approximation symbol. If not P, then not Q. That's our inverse statement. The contrapositive is where you switch or exchange the hypothesis and the conclusion of the inverse. So if you do not have cake, then it is not your birthday. In symbols, that is written as, if not Q, then not P. Those are our three conditional statements that are related to the original conditional statement. Now, if we wanted to talk about the truth values of these, remember that for the truth value of a conditional to be true, we have to show that every time the hypothesis is true, the conclusion is also true. So, for the first one, if it is your birthday, then you have cake. Well, that was our original statement. It is your birthday, so you have cake. So our hypothesis would be true. Let's put a T for true. And our conclusion would also be true. Now that would make our entire conditional statement true. In the converse, if you have cake is now our hypothesis, then it is your birthday. It is your birthday is now our conclusion. We have to decide whether the converse is true. You have cake, that is true. It is your birthday. Now we've got to decide if that is true or false. Well, just because you have cake does not mean it is your birthday. So, but we've got to look back at our conditional. Our conditional said it is your birthday, you have cake. Well, does not mean because you have cake, it is your birthday. So that could be false. So that would make our entire converse false. Now, the negation. If it is not your birthday, then you do not have cake. Well, it is not your birthday. It says in our conditional that that is your birthday, so this is false. Well, our conditional is false. It doesn't really matter whether our conclusion is true or false, but if it is not your birthday, you do not have cake. In this case, if it is not your birthday, you may still have cake. So we can say that's false and make our entire conditional statement false. Contrapositive. If you do not have cake, which is now our hypothesis, then it is not your birthday, which is our conclusion. Well, if you do not have cake, in our original statement it says you have cake. So you do not have cake is false. Then it is not your birthday. Well, if you do not have cake, it is not your birthday. So that is true. So that would make this one false. I have to back up one. Anytime the conditional, the hypothesis is false, and the conditional is false, that actually makes the entire statement true. So we actually have two true statements and two false statements. Truth value tables are very difficult to understand. I just wanted to show them to you. I do not believe that we will have these on the test, but I just wanted you to be aware of the truth tables. So the big concept I want you to get is the fact of how to write conditional, converse, inverse, and contrapositive statements.